Stampers, welcome. I'm Pat Fairless from Fairless Stampin Flair, and today it's template time. I do this every so often, and I realized a few weeks ago I hadn't done it in quite a while. I think it was February since I did my last template time week. So this week is template time, and I have a fun sketch that we're going to use to make a card today. And I'm just going to get right at it. So let's flip the camera over and get started. So this is the sketch. It has lots of pieces, and I think I didn't do myself any favor when I made this. I added dimensions on here. I'm gonna say just kind of either totally ignore the dimensions or use them very roughly for some guidance if you're wondering how big things are. The cards I made this week both use this template, but today on the video, we're going to make a third card, and I will show you the other two cards that will be posted on the website and on my Facebook page this week. And today I'm going to try to use these dimensions a little bit more than I did on the other cards. The other cards, I kind of went a little rogue, did some flipping and flopping and changed things up. But let's try to follow this template today. So I'm going to set it aside where I can see it. I do have a tutorial, and on the tutorial, both of the tutorials from the website will have this sketch. But again, don't worry about the dimensions. Just use the sketch itself for inspiration. And today I am going to use the lovely and beautiful designer series paper. This is a great sketch to use designer series paper. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different, 7 actually with the background, different elements on here that you can use different or the same or mix it up with cardstock, whatever you want to do. But this paper is so pretty. This was from a suite that we had, I believe it was the January to April mini catalog. The paper is still available. The other items, at least the stamp sets that were in there, have been either retired or maybe they're still on the last chance list. I didn't totally look at the last chance list other than for the paper. And the paper was still not even on last chance. It's still available, and it is beautiful. So you can quickly see the different patterns here. Let me flip this over so you can see the backs. On the backs, we have smaller patterns. So the pieces that I am going to use are this one, this one. I have to look, some of them are on the back. This one. And there's a granny apple green. Oh, we're going to use this one. And this granny apple green. So I am using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different patterns on my card today. Yes, that's right. I'm like, that sounds like more than I planned. But no, it is 5. So I did go ahead and cut my pieces. But before we get to actually making the card, what I typically do when I have a sketch that is maybe new or I haven't used before, I like to cut all the pieces. Now, these are cut to the dimensions on the sketch. But again, use those roughly, use those as guidance. They're not hard, fast rules. So we have a card base, which is our standard A2 size card, 5.5 by 4 1/4. Then I have a background piece. So if I lay it on the sketch, it's like this. The next piece on the sketch is a little 3 by 2 piece. Then we have a piece that lays up in here. and another little square that's down here. These could be different. They don't have to be the same. The next piece that's laid on here is a 2.5 by 1.25, following the sketch. And then we have a circle of some shape. This is the closest I had to 2.25 for my sketch purposes. It is a punch, and that punch is retired. But now the sentiment gets tucked down in here. So that represents the sketch as it exists. But remember, we can turn sketches. We can flip and flop them. Now, I can't flip and flop this because the pieces will fly all over. But we certainly can rotate it 180 degrees. We can rotate it 90 degrees in either direction. And just mix and match the pieces, which is kind of what I did. And that's why I like sketches. I like them because sometimes your creativity just is in the hole, right? You just can't come up with ideas. And sketches are a great way to kind of get over that creative block. So I've cut all these pieces, so you don't have to watch me cut. I did not follow the dimensions exactly on this card, but they're close, okay? So I have my background here. This is that granny apple green pattern, small pattern. I did emboss this, and I want to show you some of the products we're going to use quickly. I embossed this, so you're getting a sneak peek of a new embossing folder called Softly Woven 3D. It is a very fine plaid. It is a great folder when you just want a very subtle background. Sometimes you just want a subtle embossed surface, right? You don't want a whole lot of stuff going on. You just want it subtle to give it some texture. And this one is great for that. So I used that, and I've adhered this to my front of my card base, which is thick basic white. We are also going to use the Scallop Blooms bundle. This bundle consists of a stamp set with several sentiments and then some awesome dies. So I'm going to use this third smallest die and this particular die here. I'd call it a label or a sentiment die. I'm not going to use it for that. That's kind of, it fits some of these sentiments on the and this die set is awesome because it's got a lot of label dies on here that fit your sentiments, which I always like. So we're going to use this bundle, and then I'm also going to use the Fern and Flora bundle. We're going to use we're going to use this flower here, and I'm going to use this sentiment. Is that what I used? I thought I used one out of Scout. What am I using? No. I'm going to use this sentiment from the Scallop Blooms, and I'm going to use this die cut here. So let's just go ahead and get started. And I'm going to keep it in the landscape orientation. So this is my piece that's going to go here in the background. I created a foil mat. You can create mats for these shapes. You don't have to. You can just use them as they are on the sketch. I should probably I'm going to use my liquid adhesive. This is giving me a little bit better wiggle room if I need to slide it a little bit. You don't want to slide liquid adhesive on foil too much because it can make your foil not look pretty. And I also have this other piece that we're going to mat with foil. Now my mats, I made them 1/8 inch larger than my designer series paper. So that gives me a very narrow border, which is what I was after. because there's a lot of pieces here. And if you get them too big, then it doesn't work well either. So let's go ahead. Those are the only ones. Oh, my circle. I use those scallop blooms, and because I use them both out of the same size. When I went to the next size layer scallop, it was just too big for the layout, I thought. So I made them both the same. And then what I thought I'd do, I hope this works, is I'm just going to offset it so I see the gold scallops peeking in between the DSP scallops. And here's where a little wiggle with liquid adhesive works well, in case you got to scooch that around a little bit. I think that looks good. Gives it a little bit of bling. My upper piece, make sure I got this opening correctly from the sketch. Grab the sketch again just to show you. This piece up here, this vertical piece, I made it out of this golden foil, and this is the one I cut with the scallop die, scallop circles die. So we get those pretty scallops showing up there. I thought that looked pretty nice, I thought. Now, so now I have all of my pieces. Okay, I have my little square. I have this piece, and what I like to do, because I have a lot of pieces, is to kind of lay it out first. Because if I put this too far over, now this doesn't. If I were to say adhere this down and now I go to add this piece, I need to kind of look where I'm going to put them before I start adhering things down. I don't always do that, but in this case, this sketch, because there are several pieces, it kind of, same way with this one. I want this to be coming through far enough so that when I lay the circle on here, I'm going to see a little bit of this behind there. So if I were to leave it like that, it's kind of all scooched to this side, right? So I'm just going to move it over so that this and this are kind of equal. Make sense? And that's how I figure out where I place them. I make all my pieces first, and then I go ahead and start adhering. So I've got this about, what is it? It's just a little over an inch from the left side. So, and you probably can't see what I'm doing. I'm using the measurements on my grid paper to remember where I put that. So my inch is right about here. So I'm going to put it just, we'll call it a generous inch. And this one I'm going to adhere directly down. Okay. Now we can bring these back in to do a double check. This one slightly overlaps the sketch. So, and I want to make sure that the circle also just slightly overlaps the sketch or this piece. So it doesn't come over too far. So I'm just doing a double check, one piece at a time, to make sure I got them kind of where I want them. This actually hangs over the edge here. So let's slide this over a little bit. And then this is going to tuck under here. So the next two pieces, I'm going to lift this one off and this one off, and we'll adhere these down. And I'm going to adhere them directly. I think it was about there. And this one, I'm going to look where that is, and it's just under that row of flowers. So let's just adhere that one down directly. Just under that row of flowers is where I had it. Now these last two I'm going to put on with dimensionals, and I still do have to sneak my sentiment under here. So I'm going to make sure I'll put this one on with dimensionals first. Let's look where I've got this, about right here. And I'm going to put that about ½ an inch, about right there. Now I could always take a pencil and just mark this so I can remember where it is. Sometimes that's helpful. Doesn't matter. We're going to cover up all that stuff where I put the markings anyway. Paper sliding around here. You kind of have to think about when you look at the sketch, kind of gotta, I learned this the hard way. You gotta look at the order you need to place them down. And I want it about equal from here to here. And now let's go ahead and adhere this one. And this is going to go right about there, but I don't want to make sure my dimensionals come out on this side. So, because then it'd be too high. So I'm going to put one right there. And I also want to sort of keep this area down under here open so I can slide my sentiment under there. So there. Now all we need is the sentiment. And I've indicated I'm going to use the sentiment from the scalloped looms die, but because my sentiment is on my sketch anyway, now I could change that. It's skinny, but I'm trying to follow the sketch as closely as possible with this particular card. The others, I changed it up a little bit more. It's only a ½ inch wide. So obviously I can't fit this whole stamp set, but I can fit the thank you. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how I did this, is I took a piece of low-tack tape and I covered up the bottom portion of the sentiment. And I knew I'd forget where I put my old olive ink. So we'll keep this here. And I'm going to ink this up. And remember to take that off or you will make a mess. And then we will just stamp this on here. Try to get it straight. Close enough. Now I can figure out where I want it this way. And again, if we look at our sketch, let me get that inky piece of Post-it tape here off. It just wants to nip under there, and you want it to kind of hang out here. So now I can see by stamping it on a longer piece, I can see where I need to just snip that off. Because if I were to snip it off here, then it wouldn't tuck under this piece. It would just be out here. So I want it to be able to tuck under my circle. And it is open under there, but it's got to sneak under. So there we go. So I want that about there. And then I'm just going to cut the other side off where I want it to be. And it goes almost to the edge. So let's stick that out there. I'm going to put a dimensional out here on this end just to kind of support it. But then I'm just going to add adhesive here where it will lay over this piece. And I can lay this upside down so I can see where to put that adhesive. And we'll pick this up a little bit and sneak this under there. And I didn't take my backing off. I'll do that now. Again, it's good I have liquid adhesive because it allows me to move it around a little bit and get it straight. So there is the sketch. Now it looks like it needs a little something, right? So that's why where I pulled in the fern and flora. And I went ahead and stamped and colored that one flower with, I used the petal pink and the old olive, and then I die cut the other die for the lead stem just right from old olive cardstock. So I'm going to add a little adhesive just kind of in the center along the stem. And then I can position this, take a look and figure out where I want it. I want to see a little of the green on this side and the other side. And we will go ahead and put that on there with some more dimensionals. Where do I want it? Probably right about, and the center's a good place, right? So there we go. Now, every good card needs a little bit of bling. So I found these pearlized faceted circles. They've got both calypso coral in them, some petal pinks, some kind of white ones. What do I like? I think I like the darker ones. And where do I want to put them? I don't know. This is always the hardest part for me. I can never figure out, do I want to use big ones, little ones? Let's put those two up there. And let's put a smaller one down here on the sentiment. I don't know. What do you think? I way overthink where to put these things. So there, our front of our card is finished. Now we can't ever leave a naked inside. So what I did was I've got a old olive matte, a basic white message layer, and then I picked one of the designer series paper, and since I had the most of this left, I used that and just edged it with a little bit of gold foil. Now it's too long, I know, but if you've watched me at all, you know I always make them too long, because that way I know I get them the right length when I put them on here. So I'm going to line this up and try to get it straight. And we're going to put it just up about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Maybe 1/8 of an inch. We'll slide it down. That looks better. I like that better. Again, I'm not a great fan of liquid adhesive, but it definitely has its benefits. And being able to scooch things around is the biggest benefit, in my opinion. And I didn't get this too straight. Let's just try that again. Okay, now we can put this on our old olive mat. And our card will be finished. I'm not going to put a sentiment on the inside. It is a thank you card. So I like to leave a lot of room to write a message when I make thank you cards, so I can personalize it. And there we go. That makes a pretty inside, ties it nicely to the front. I pulled in that same designer series paper for the envelope, and we are all set. So let me show you the other two cards. I'm going to clean some of this stuff out of my way for a minute here. I always end up with stuff everywhere. Even when I really didn't, you know, a lot of the messiest part of the card was already done, which is the cutting and getting the paper scraps and so on, right? But I still end up with a lot of them. So here was another horizontal orientation. This one, the circle is larger than the template. And so it needed modification of some of these sizes behind it because the circle is ending up covering up way too much of the designer series paper. You should be able to see the difference. The layers are larger. So that's why I'm saying use those dimensions very loosely, reference only. They're not a hard, fast rule, as is the layout. It's not a hard, fast rule. And for here, I used the hot foil butterfly flight die. And it makes 5 butterflies. So you make them all at once. So I have 5, and I picked one for my card front here. I colored these. There are decorative masks that come in that bundle. And my colors I used were Berry Burst, Soft Sea Foam, and Mossy Meadow. And then on the inside, because I had 5 butterflies, I used one more here on the inside. And I put another one on the envelope. So I still have 2 left. So that is that card using that same sketch. And then here's this one. Now I flipped it. So this one here, I'll try to explain what I did. You can see you can see semblances of the sketch, I think. But basically I rotated it vertical, and then I have to think about what I did. I flipped it. I didn't rotate. I flipped it in this direction, and then I rotated it or flipped it in this direction. So this one's more of a flip and a flop. So I flipped it and I flopped it. Okay. So now you can kind of see, but I did still have to, and then I made it landscape. So you do have to rotate it still to get it landscape, but I hope you get that idea. It's a guide. But you can see I've got all the same elements. So here's the little element down here. These little pots of honey is the element behind up here. Now this one, I put it on the top of this layer because this layer is the striped layer. This background layer is this blue one. Here's my circle. And here's my greeting. So I have all the same elements, and my background is still this same piece here. But I just moved them around. And this on the sketch shows it tucked behind this piece, behind the stripe piece. But who wants to do all that coloring and cover up most of it? So I wanted it on top, so I put it on top, right? So there's that card. This one will be on my website tomorrow. And this video will be on there so you can get to the video from the website as well. And the tutorial for this is on there. And then on the inside, rather than doing my normal 5 1/4 by 4, and then I usually do 5 by 3 3/4, I decided to follow this where I pulled this the full length, this same DSP. Now I had to keep it away from the fold a little bit because it didn't quite want to fold. And then I just made this piece, I think, a 1/2 inch smaller, maybe almost an inch smaller. And I stamped some more pots down here. Actually, these are die cut, stamped and then die cut, because I made those first, and then I ended up not wanting to use them on the front, so I used them on the inside. You could stamp it directly onto the very vanilla cardstock. And I stamped the bees, just 2 of them here. So I masked off the rest of them and then just stamped 2 of them here on the front. So there are the 3 cards. I'd love to know what you think of that sketch. I think it's fun. It's a good starting place. But again, don't get hung up by interpreting it too literally or thinking you have to follow the dimensions exactly. Change it up however you want. Okay. All right, let me flip my camera back. See if I can do it right this week. I think I did. Man, 2 weeks in a row, I had a problem with that, didn't I? But I hope you like the sketch. I hope you give it a try. I'd love to see what you should come up with. If you follow me on my Facebook page, you can add a photo to the comment, your comment, and add your photo of how you interpreted the sketch. That'd be fun to see. So have a great day. If you feel like you learned something or at least enjoyed the cards, give me a thumbs up. That would be awesome. And until next week, have a great day and God bless.